Let's talk about the hidden cost of negative thinking and what actually happens inside your brain. We tend to treat negativity as a personality trait or a harmless habit, something people do when they are tired, stressed, or just venting. Neuroscience suggests otherwise. The way we habitually speak about our lives does not merely reflect our inner state, it actively shapes it. Over time, repeated negative thinking and chronic complaining can alter how the brain functions, how the body responds to stress, and how resilient we feel in everyday life. This is not about forced positivity or denying real problems. It is about understanding how the brain learns, adapts, and defaults, and why emotional hygiene deserves the same seriousness we give to physical hygiene. How the brain learns negativity. The human brain is built to learn from repetition. Through a process known as neuroplasticity, neural circuits that are frequently activated become stronger, faster, and more automatic. This is how we learn languages, master skills, and form habits. The same mechanism applies to thought patterns. When we repeatedly complain or ruminate, we activate brain networks involved in threat detection, emotional reactivity, and stress regulation. Each episode reinforces the same message. Something is wrong and I am under threat. Over time, the brain becomes more efficient at scanning for problems, anticipating disappointment, and interpreting neutral events as negative. What may begin as a reasonable response to difficulty can gradually harden into a default mode of perception. From temporary stress to a chronic baseline. Negativity doesn't just stay in your head. When stress and complaining become habitual, your body starts reacting as if pressure is constant. Over time, this shows up physically. Higher everyday stress levels, stronger emotional reactions, increased irritation over small things, and slower recovery after setbacks. When this happens, the nervous system no longer responds proportionally to reality. Small problems feel larger because the brain has learned to stay on alert. The body follows along, maintaining a low-grade stress response even when there's no real threat. This is why people who habitually complain often report feeling constantly on edge, exhausted, or overwhelmed, even during relatively calm periods of life. Why negativity comes so naturally to some. Negativity isn't a personal flaw. It's a learned habit rooted in how the human brain evolved. We're wired to notice problems faster than what's going well because at one time, spotting danger was essential for survival. That reflex kept us alive. Today, however, most of the threats we react to are not life or death, and the habit of constant vigilance often creates stress long after it's useful. The brain is simply better at spotting what's wrong than what's right. Modern life amplifies this tendency. Constant stress, comparison, and a steady stream of alarming information, especially through news and social media, train the mind to stay alert and critical. Negativity can feel useful because it creates a sense of control or preparedness, even as it quietly raises baseline stress. Over time, what begins as self-protection solidifies into a destructive habit. Here's why venting can backfire. Most of us have experienced how venting to a trusted friend can feel relieving. Saying something out loud, feeling understood, and getting it off your chest can lower stress, especially in the moment. In moderation, naming emotions helps the nervous system settle. The problem starts when venting becomes repetitive rather than releasing. When the same complaints are rehearsed again and again without resolution or perspective, the brain stops experiencing relief and starts experiencing reinforcement. Instead of letting go, the mind rehearses the problem. Each retelling refreshes the emotional charge rather than draining it. Over time, the brain strengthens the pattern. In effect, the mind practices negativity until it becomes fluent in it. Emotional hygiene, a missing health practice. We understand that one good night of sleep doesn't offset chronic sleep deprivation. We understand that a poor diet or lack of movement accumulates damage over time. Emotional patterns operate under the same logic. Emotional hygiene means recognizing that thoughts are biological events. Repetition creates default settings, and awareness allows redirection. This is not about suppressing emotion. It is about choosing not to rehearse stress as a daily ritual. It's about rewiring without pretending everything is fine. The brain remains plastic throughout life, meaning it is capable of change. Negative pathways can be weakened and more adaptive ones strengthened without denying reality. Research in effective neuroscience shows that small, deliberate shifts practiced consistently can change emotional baselines. Practical strategies include: be specific, not dramatic. Describe problems in clear, factual terms. Focus on the next step. Pair frustration with one small action. Set time limits on stress. Decide how long you'll dwell before moving on. Watch your language. Replace always, never, and everything is wrong with what's accurate. These aren't mindset tricks. They are ways of training the brain to respond more calmly and realistically over time. The quiet power of attention. What we repeatedly pay attention to becomes our lived reality, not metaphorically, but biologically. Attention directs neural resources and determines what feels familiar, safe, and expected. The nervous system cannot distinguish between an imagined threat and a real one. Negativity is not dangerous because it is immoral or unpleasant. It is dangerous because it teaches the brain to live in a state of unnecessary threat. A final thought. We would not tolerate drinking contaminated water or breathing polluted air every day without concern. Yet many of us allow our inner environment to remain chronically toxic without question. Emotional hygiene is not self-help. It is preventive care. And like all meaningful health practices, it begins with awareness, consistency, and responsibility for what we repeatedly reinforce. Many of the patterns discussed here are explored in greater depth in my book, Why You're Sick and How to Get Well, where I focus on emotional awareness, boundaries, and healthier connections. If this resonated with you, the links to purchase my book are in the description below. Is negativity quietly running your life? If you're ready to understand why and change it, request your complimentary discovery session now.